BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Welcome once again to Match of the Day Top 10. Jermaine Jenas is with me as usual in this second series. Well, not quite with me, obviously, in these times. But he is up in Manchester doing Match of the Day tonight, which I'm not doing. I'm at home. Someone else is doing the Match of the Day tonight. These obviously are recorded before, well before they go out. So how is it up there? All right? Getting used to it? Yeah. These socially distanced broadcasts?
Yeah, this is my first journey up to Manchester, but it's quite eerie. There's still a lot of nerves around the studios. I know you've been up here, you've seen it, so yeah, it's my first one up here. It's a bit strange, but you fancied a day off today, did you? Just chilling out in London.
Well, I'm doing my fair share, but this is not what I call a day off. This is but it's pleasurable, that's for sure. Because today we are joined by a man who has won the Champions League, holds the record for 8 appearances in the PFA's Team of the Year in the Premier League era, and captained England at the 2014 World Cup. It's the one and only Steven Gerrard. Steven, thanks very much for doing this, and thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'm up in sunny Glasgow, which you'll be pleased to hear, which is very unusual, but things are still in lockdown up here, so it's been an absolute pleasure to come on and kill the boredom with a bit of banter.
Well, hopefully. And no football to kill the boredom with, is there, up there? It's obviously not started like it has down here.
No, we're just waiting for the fixtures, Gary, which we're hoping to come out in a couple of days, and we're hoping to get going early August. We've also got, obviously, the second leg of the Europa League to look forward to. We're trailing by a couple of goals, so it'll be a big task. But hopefully in 4 or 5 weeks, we're playing back for real, which is what we're all looking forward to. That'll
be really difficult, won't it? Actually having a Europa League game as a big game like that as your first one back, with no league games to warm up like the English clubs would have had and the other European sides.
Yeah, we could have one league game, Gary. I think the plan is to start on the 1st of August and that fixture's on the 6th. But it will be strange for different reasons, because we had 2 or 3 loan players available to us last year who won't be available to us. Obviously, Bayer Leverkusen have just finished their season, so we don't know how they're going to approach it, whether they're going to go into a pre-season or they're going to carry through, because they've got a cup final as well. So it's probably strange and challenging for both teams, but the good thing is that we're back playing football. That's the most important thing.
Great stuff. These podcasts go out in a few weeks after we've recorded them, but right now it's less than a week, of course, since Liverpool were confirmed as Premier League champions. Must have been mixed emotions in a way, because you're not part of it as such nowadays, but at the same time, it's your club.
To be honest with you, first and foremost, for me, it was fantastic to bury a few demons. Not all the demons, but obviously from 2004, it was certainly a big relief. Being a Liverpool fan and an ex-player, I know more than most the big long wait. Far too long for the club of Liverpool's size. And obviously, I'm in touch with a lot of the players that are in that dressing room, so a lot of them shared that pain with me. So obviously it was fantastic for everyone connected to the club, but it was mixed in many ways because of my own experiences, being a fan, being an ex-player. A lot of my family are Liverpool fans as well. And to be honest with you, I'm still on a real big high. I've been on a high all week, just watching all the TV coverage and seeing all the emotions flying about. And in my own time, I've really enjoyed the week being in the city as well.
Saw that nice post that you put out to Jordan Henderson, Stevie. Nice touch that, from yourself. Obviously having won and achieved so much at the club and probably understanding exactly what Jordan went through when he first arrived. It was. I thought it was a really nice moment from yourself to kind of recognise him like that.
Well, I think first and foremost, JJ, that's authentic from myself. That's not something trying to think. I think, being part of a football team in the dressing room, a lot of people in the public on the outside, they don't really see what happens and what goes on. Jordan left Sunderland at a young age. His mum and dad came and pulled me one night after a game and said, look, we're concerned about him. It's a big move for him. Will you look after him? Will you keep an eye out for him? And look, I don't want to take any credit for anything or the part I've played with Jordan Henderson, but I've seen firsthand a kid who took a massive challenge and a massive step in his career, and he took his fair share of whacks and bumps and criticism along the way. But what he did was he remained quiet, and he done his talking on the pitch, and he done his talking by working ever so hard in the gym and doing all the stuff you have to put around talent. And I'm just absolutely delighted for him now that he's getting all the rewards for that. and he deserves to be a Premier League champion. He deserves to be a European champion, and I hope all the individual accolades follow. So that was just me paying tribute to him, because I've witnessed it. I've witnessed the downs. I've witnessed the pain. I've witnessed the setbacks. And now to see him absolutely delivering is fantastic as a teammate and as a friend. And people that don't know Jordan, they're starting to see now that he is a top-class footballer, but he's a wonderful human being as well, and that's more important for me.
I think you can see that as well, what he's done in the lockdown as well. And funnily enough, the Football Writers voting has just come out. And I'm a member of the Football Writers Association. So he got my vote as Footballer of the Year. I think it obviously it had to be a Liverpool player. I think if you looked at perhaps the top six, the only one outside of Liverpool that perhaps get in would be Kevin De Bruyne. But he got my vote, Jordan Henderson. I think he's been great, and he's had obviously a perfect example to follow up from. Yeah,
well, I think to show my non-bias, I think Kevin De Bruyne's the best player in the league. I think he's absolutely sensational when I watch him. He blows me away every time I watch him. I love him. I love him to bits. I wish he was a Red, but I mean, yes, probably you do edge towards someone who has maybe won the league or in that type of scenario. And I think Jordan would be a worthy winner, as would Mane, for example. Young Trent, I'm sure he's going to get a lot of young accolades along the way. The two main pieces of the jigsaw for me, Gary, looking at Liverpool very closely as I do, is the keeper and Van Dijk, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I think Liverpool...
The best signings.
I think Liverpool were a good team and an exciting team before Van Dijk and the keeper come, but they've just absolutely turned them into a world class, and the jigsaw's complete with them, so they've been absolutely phenomenal.
Okay, let's get to the gist of this and what it's all about, the top tens. And funnily enough, you've actually featured a few times in this podcast already without knowing. We've recorded a couple of them. In the first series, before this particular podcast with Jermaine, we had Ian Wright and Alan. They voted your goal against West Ham in the 2005 FA Cup final as their number one FA Cup moment. I don't know whether you saw that. And in the first episode of this second series, Cesc Fabregas named you as the best player he's played against. Although Messi was disqualified as he'd already picked him as his best player he's played with.
Second best.
But, high praise.
Listen, very, very high praise and very flattered. And I did actually read it. I didn't see it. I read it. And the respect's certainly mutual. I mean, I played against Cesc, certainly in his younger days when he was at Arsenal, and you could see the potential in him as well. So I'd like to repay the compliments. I mean, we're lucky in the Premier League. I mean, JJ will echo this. I think certainly through Aria, we played with some phenomenal midfielders. Lampard, Scholes, Fabregas. JJ had all his strengths as well. I think the competition at that time, during our decade, if you like, was so fierce.
Yeah, well, no doubt we'll come to that. Today we're counting down your own personal top 10 from your career, Stevie. So today we're going to ask you for the best player you've played with, the best player you've played against, the best manager you've played under, the favourite goal you've scored, the favourite game you played in. I've got a feeling I know what that might be. Football hero growing up, the funniest moment that you can recall, the best game you've ever watched, the craziest teammate. I'm sure there are a few vying for that spot. And the favourite international moment. We'll start, Stephen, with the best player you've played with.
By the way, just before we start, are you allowed to pick sort of one for Liverpool and one for England, or is it just one?
Well, it depends. We can manipulate the rules as we go along. Yeah, but on this one,
we'll take a couple.
You can. Yes, you can. But ultimately, you'll have to name one.
Okay.
Fire away. Best player you've played with.
Luis Suarez for Liverpool. Yeah. I don't think you'll be surprised by that. Absolute phenomenal footballer. Just a machine. I mean, someone who's never walked into a treatment room, someone who's never been injured, and someone who I always felt going onto the pitch, we could beat any type of opposition just because he could do things that would blow me away on a football pitch. Just a phenomenal talent.
What was he like as a bloke?
I think he's very quiet, which probably surprises people from the outside. I mean, Lewis would come in normal in the morning. He'd do his normal preparation. He'd train. He'd be the best in training the majority of the days. He used to train the way he played. So he must have been an absolute disaster for defenders to compete against. And then he'd be away really quick. And he wouldn't be away quick because of a lack of professionalism or he didn't want to be there. He's just a family man. He never used to drink. He never used to really socialise with people. He used to spend his life with his wife and his children. And he had one child at the time, and his missus become pregnant further on. But if you had to describe Luis Suarez off a football pitch, it'd be a quiet man, up for a joke and a laugh, but just a family man, so pretty normal really, which is probably surprises a few.
What was he like when he very first arrived, Steve? Because obviously, arriving from Ajax, coming into a massive club like Liverpool, some players can shrink a little bit. It can take them a while to get going. Did you instantly see him and go, yeah, we're on to something here?
It took about 10 minutes, JJ, because I think a lot of strikers that we used to sign did have respect for the likes of Jamie Carragher and other names around the squad. No, he had no respect for anyone in training in a good way.
Yeah.
You know, he'd be backing in, he'd be backing into them, he'd be leaving a bit on them, he'd have elbows up, and I'd be thinking, whoa, that's not normally what you'd see in training. You'd normally see a lot of respect, but Lewis would run through anyone and he'd have any defender up the wall at any given moment. So you knew pretty soon after 2 or 3 sessions. And to be fair, I think he scored on his debut, which helped him settle. But you knew straight away in days rather than weeks that he was going to be a top player for Liverpool straight away.
I actually saw him in an interview saying that it was you that convinced him to stay at Liverpool and turn down Arsenal in 2013. Is that the case? You convinced him?
I think there's an element of truth to it. It got a bit messy, I think. I think Lewis had been promised certain things off certain people behind the scenes. You know, if there was no Champions League and a certain price was offered for him, he might have been allowed to speak to other people. So he felt let down. There was a bit of a fallout where Brendan made him train alone for a certain time. So I think I was just more of a negotiator in that situation. You know, I obviously wanted the best for Liverpool. I didn't like seeing a world-class footballer training alone. So it was more of a case of getting people in the room and getting stuff off the chest and just trying to play a captain's role, really. I think in terms of did I make him stay at Liverpool for next year? Probably no, I disagree with that. But I definitely played negotiated in terms of calming things down and, you know, sort of having that one-on-one chat with Lewis to say, look, Lewis, don't leave Liverpool in bad terms, please. You know, do what you need to do, set something up for next year. You know, try and win us something and then leave on good terms because you don't deserve that. The fans don't deserve it. And Barcelona are not going to go away because you're such a phenomenal footballer. Everyone's going to be at the table for you. So why create a fuss to move out, if you like?
Yeah, you certainly did him a favour not letting him go to Arsenal, that's for sure.
No comment. JJ, you should answer that one.
Just a joke.
It's too late. You've said it now, Gaz. Too late.
I know. I'll tell you about it. Where would you sooner go to? Arsenal or Barcelona anyway? Right, let's say the best player you've played against. My goodness, you've played against some of the greats.
This is where I wanted to pick two. So in the early days, it had to be Zidane. You know, probably at a stage where I'm early 20s and, you know, probably the first time I've gone onto a football pitch and come off and I've been in total shock where you've been in awe of someone. Just the size, the physicality, the power, the strength, the skill, the size of his feet, the way he used to manipulate the ball, his touch, his movements. I remember sitting in a dressing room and one of the masseurs said to me, come on, get a shower quick, we have to go. And I was just still sitting there in a state of shock, just a phenomenal footballer.
Well, what game would that have been, Steve, before you give us the next one? Was it the 2004 Championships or before?
Yeah, it was in there, yeah. That was the one. Yeah. That was the game,
When he scored those for the free kick and all that. Yeah,
I grew up watching him in certain games and obviously being a big fan, and then you get the chance to share a pitch and people don't realise that Dan was 6'2", 6'3", and he had these broad shoulders and big quads and an intimidating footballer just to be on the same pitch as, never mind compete against.
But so graceful as well, wasn't he? So graceful. It was almost like a ballet dancer in the way he moved.
Yeah, and you know, if you could go back and have another career and someone said to you, you know, pick a body, you can pick anyone's body you can have for the next 10, 15 years, you say, I'll have Zidane's, give me that one, that'll do.
You know, as you said, you were sat in the dressing room just kind of like thinking like what's happened there, that was just unreal. You know, if you could go back on the pitch kind of like now, even like with your coach, is there anything you think you could have done to make yourself not feel that way afterwards?
Yeah, I think so. And I think you'd have moments and challenges and you come up against certain people in your career and you think, well, you know, I thought I was a good player. And I think I'm a good player, but there's more levels. There's people out there that are doing stuff better than you. Look, but what I mean is, it's like, I think I could have been more professional. I could have trained hard. You know, you look back and you did it again. If you did it again, you'd do things slightly different. And it's because you come up against people like him, and they shock you at times.
Who's the other one then?
The other one's Messi, for sure. Coming towards the twilight of my career, he obviously comes into his prime and stuff. I mean, we've sat there many a times on doing the punditry, and he is just a freak footballer. I think there's certain footballers that operate on a different planet to all of us. I've said it before, and I think we're going to miss him. I think there's going to be tears from all of us when he decides to call it a day, because he's just a freak. He's my modern day Diego Maradona, if you like.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, because I was thinking when I played, obviously, like yourselves, played at the top, but then you're playing at the top, you're playing in World Cups and stuff, and there's a player on the pitch who is actually seriously on another level. I mean, Maradona was like every great footballer in the world was in awe of him. He was so good. And I absolutely concur with you with Messi. It's like the things he does, even on his quiet days, he'll do 3 or 4 things in a match that take your breath away. 3 or 4 things that in the entirety of my career I wouldn't have done once. I know. In every game.
You even do things on the couch. You're sitting there watching the TV, you got a cup of tea, and you're having your time out and stuff. And the next thing, you're running around the living room with your head in your hands, and Alex is looking at me, and the kids are looking at me. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "You just don't understand what I'm witnessing on this television. It's like it's PlayStation stuff."
He plays football like probably we used to at school. At a professional level, it's not even
Speak for yourself.
It's not even close. Well, you can imagine at school. People of our level at school, you're way above kind of the regular kids in the playground on the field. Yeah. He's doing it at a professional level.
He's doing it to world-class footballers.
Correct,
And it's not just the goals and the assists that blow me away. It's the speed, and it's the moments in the game when the best players just do it. And I
don't know whether you were watching at all, but the game they played the other night against Atletico Madrid, I was watching the match. It finished 2-2, but there was one little bit, and it's not that important in the overall terms of the game. It didn't lead to a goal. It wasn't an assist, anything like that. But there's a bit on the corner and the pitch where the ball's knocked to him, and he hasn't got much time. A player dives in at him on the floor to tackle.
He skips it up, flips
it up over him. It was like. Because those things, you do appreciate, because I just couldn't never have done that. I wouldn't have had the wherewithal.
I remember reading a piece on him. Someone had done it at Jenas. I can't remember the name, but I remember actually just going crazy at the time, because people were saying he was having a bad season, and I'm sure he had 48 goals. And someone had the audacity to say he's out of form. He doesn't deserve this accolade. He doesn't deserve that. He's not himself. He's finished. And they're still trying to say he's finished, and then the season after he must have got 50.
I'll tell you who should have been finished, whoever wrote that.
100%.
I'm selling you.
Right. Best manager you played under?
Rafa Benitez.
You go for Rafa?
Rafa Benitez.
Probably not the manager you got on best with, necessarily.
No. But I don't think that should be when you're picking who is the best manager. If you look at, what they got out of you, what they got out of the team that you played for, how much they made that team go to a level possibly where it shouldn't have gone to. I think tactically he improved me from a personal point of view. So, the relationship between me and Rafa, even though we weren't fantastic at the time, and it wasn't one of them warm father-son type relationships that I'd had previously with like a Julia, if you like. If you're talking about someone who can set a team up to win a football match, or someone who can break your game down individually to help you get to the next level and be a better footballer for it, it's definitely Rafa Benitez.
According to Didi Hamann, Rafa only ever referred to you as Gerrard, whereas with every other player it was his first name or a nickname. Is that true?
I think possibly.
Why do you think that? Why do you think? Do you think he had some kind of issue with you? Do you think there was something?
Gary, I don't think it was an issue, but I tell you that I think what I think it is was Rafa was always wanting to send me a message, sort of like, I've come in and you're the big name, you're the captain, and blah blah blah, and the fans talk about you, the media talk about you, blah blah blah. But I'm just letting you know that you're one of a team. And it's more about the team rather than the individual. But I was fine with that, so I got along with that. It was different for me at first. I had to adapt to it, because before that, you're talking about a manager that wanted to know what I was eating, where I was going after training. A manager who used to phone me mum and dad to make sure that I went out on the weekend and stuff. It was more like a father figure, a lot more close, a lot more warmth and love. But Rafa came in and sort of treated me, not cold, but just pretty normal compared to how I used to be treated before. Now, I probably could have went two ways with that. I probably could have felt sorry for myself and insecure and maybe folded at certain times. But I was aware of that treatment. But that used to drive me on to impress him, to get more warmth off him, to get more love off him, and to show him that I wanted to be one of his lieutenants, if you like.
I mean, being a manager now, Stevie, as well. I mean, you mentioned him as the best. So has he had an influence on you?
Yes, I think so. I think with all the managers I've worked under, JJ, I think you try and learn from them all, if you like, and you try and take the best bit. But if you look at probably some of the highlights we've had here at Rangers over the 2 years, it's probably been the European runs we've been on.
Yeah.
And I'd be a liar if I said I haven't tapped into Rafa's tactics at certain times in terms of how he's set up and the approach.
Yeah.
And, we could go on for ages tactically how he used to do it. But I've learned an awful lot on Rafa, certainly what he used to do in Europe and how he used to set us up.
Would you pick up the phone and give him a call?
I have done. I phoned him a couple of times at Newcastle to try and loan a few of his players. And as you can imagine, he blew me out.
Did he call you Gerrard while doing it?
When I say the relationship's totally fine. I could phone him up now for half an hour, 45 minutes, no problem. He's phoned me a couple of times as well. The relationship's totally fine and perfect. It's just at the time, it was very different from the Houllier relationship, so it was, a little bit more cold, if you like.
Which player did you want from Newcastle then?
I tried to get Longstaff before he in the first year. In the first year here, he wasn't playing as much. We were looking around the 23 leagues, and he was probably the best midfielder around in the 23 leagues at the time. And it was just a courtesy call to say, look, do you want him to play and get some experience, and for us to help him get him ready? And then, believe it or not, at the weekend, he scored a goal from outside the box, and I just sent Rafa a text saying, that's the end of that then, isn't it? Anymore? Any others?
He's got bags of potential, that young lad, that's for sure.
Steve, with Rafa, the 2009 team you had at Liverpool, when Torres was just like out of this world at that time, and you was probably playing just off him, arguably some of the best football you ever played in Liverpool shirt, I would say, when you was playing just behind Torres. How good was that side that he kind of set up at that time?
I think probably outside of the 2001 team, that's the best team I played in.
Yeah. Better than 2013?
I'd say yes. It was probably better. I think Louis is, as I say, is the best player we've ever played with. But we had a period of Torres as well, where he probably up there alongside Suarez. I don't think Torres has done it consistently since then, and obviously never done it at Chelsea in terms of that level. But just going back to Rafa, when Rafa came in 2004, there's no way in the world I could have played as a number 10 or with me back to goal. So that's another reason. Like, Rafa helped me become someone who could play up a line and play with me back to goal and play with a number 9, and learnt me all the tactics, where to run, when to run, and all the details behind it. And the reason why we were such a dangerous team was obviously the form of Torres, but also the spine behind me having Mascherano, Alonso there, which was probably more secure than if I was playing there, because I used to wander off as a number 8. So in terms of being a solid team and tactically set up and people all tuned in, I think the 2009 was probably slightly better than 2013-14.
It's the fact. I mean, we've got something in common here. The three of us. I mean, I've finished runner-up in leagues on 4 occasions. 3 times with Bar against a brilliant Real Madrid side, and once with Everton against your mob, which we should have won. So, I mean, it's something that you look back, isn't it? And I'm the same, and just think, God, you miss out on a winning a Premier League title or a Division 1 as it was back then. Every day, really. Every day, yeah. And I think obviously because of the cruel moments that I experienced. I mean, I've never shied away from it, how big a moment it was and stuff. But every day, Gary, and as I say, a lot of demons were put to bed recently. Not all of them, but certainly felt a lot better when Liverpool got over the line recently, because I knew what, going so close in 2004, the impact it had on the supporters in the city. So, I look back every day, and I think I always will do forever and ever, because it is the one that eludes me in terms of being a player. And it would have completed the set. In terms of obviously, I was going to ask, would you swap Istanbul for one?
No, I wouldn't, just because of the joy and the moments and the life changing experience that gave me. I'd never swap it, but I'd give an awful lot of other things to have a Premier League medal. That's for sure. That's for sure.
This one might be difficult to answer then with what we're just talking about, right? Do you feel maybe the club let you down a little bit in terms of your ambitions and their ambitions in maybe achieving that title during your career period at the club?
Listen, JJ, the club have never let me down. The club have been absolutely phenomenal with me since I've been 8 years of age. I mean, I grew up on a council estate and, my parents done the best for me, but I've had support off that club since I've been 8 years of age. So I don't think so. If you look at it,
I meant more in terms of like signings.
I know exactly what you mean. I think we've had periods throughout the journey where we could have had better leadership, if you like, and we could have been better recruitment wise, and we could have done this. But that's obviously looking back and looking for certain excuses. There's been certain times where I could have been better myself. But if you in terms of Liverpool, the club, what it's gave me, absolutely give me everything. I couldn't have asked for any more. But there's definitely been times where it could have had better leadership from the top. I mean, I think you know what I'm alluding to.
Definitely.
But while we're on managers, it would be remiss not to get your view of Jurgen Klopp. You worked with him, obviously. You're part of his staff for a while, but not as a player as such. But appreciation of him. What a job he's done, hasn't he?
I mean, I said a couple of weeks ago, I'd done an interview about getting the statue ready for him in the couple of weeks leading up to before they won it. I mean, he comes in and he obviously takes over a team that's languishing around 6th and 7th in the league. And there's a lot better teams at the time in Europe and domestically. And then to go on and, he hit the post, if you like, in the Europa League in the final. Yeah. And then he gets to the Champions League final and actually plays well in that final. Obviously, the injury to Salah, it could have been another successful moment, but doesn't let the team feel sorry for themselves, and then they bounce back straight away and win the Champions League in outstanding fashion. And then to go and deliver the league on the back of that, after the disappointment of losing out to Man City, I mean, this is a phenomenal job, and I think everyone across the board has to appreciate the job he's done. And I've been lucky to have one-on-ones with him and sit in his office and be around the training ground. And I actually trained with Liverpool for 2 weeks during an MLS season. So I seen how he does it on the training pitch and how he treats people and the tactical side of it and what he put in. He's just a phenomenal operator, and he's absolutely turned that city round in terms of the fans and the feeling, and he's got the fans eating out of his hand, and rightly so. And hopefully long may it continue, because I think there's more to come.
Great stuff. Right, we'll move on from managers to very personal things. Favourite goal that you scored, and by me, you scored a few belters, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think I have to pick the West Ham FA Cup final, just for a couple of reasons. Obviously, I dreamed of playing in a FA Cup final, Gary. I watched a few that you played in yourself, going up against Liverpool. I used to have family parties on the street, and actually becoming a Liverpool player, the FA Cup was always my favourite one. So to score in 2006 an important goal at a time when I had nothing left to give, I was cramping up, I was tired. West Ham were better than us on the day.
I was there.
And you know yourself as players, sometimes you just hit one and it comes off right and it connects right, and you're a bit like, you surprise yourself, if you like, and that was one of them goals and one of them moments for me.
I was at the other end and I remember seeing it.
Yeah, it was unreal. I mean, to be honest with you, Stevie, it's my favourite goal you've ever scored as well, because we were going for top four with Spurs and Arsenal at the time, and it was when Lasagna Gate happened and we all got food poisoning on the last day of the season.
Oh, yeah.
And those West Ham players, I've never seen celebrations like it the day they beat us to make sure we didn't get into the Champions League. I remember being sat in that dressing room and people are being, I mean, you can imagine what was going off in the toilets and in the sinks. It's just, everyone's got food poisoning and they're having a rave across the room just because they beat us. So when you smashed that one in, I have never been so happy in my life when I saw their faces. I swear to God, definitely the best goal.
It was an absolute crazy day, and it was roasting hot on the day. I mean, you've played in cup finals where it's just like the temperatures are unbelievable.
Well, you're down with cramp and stuff just before it, or you're hobbling around?
Hobbling around. And I think in a normal scenario at that time in the game, where it was positioned, I'd normally just control the ball and try and play it out wide, and maybe, if I could, try and get in the box to get on the end of something. But I was that tired, I just thought, if this comes out of the box, I'm just going to hit one and try my luck. And then when you see the net go, it was like one of them moments where I actually shocked myself because of how I was feeling at the time.
What about the header in Istanbul?
Importance-wise, I always allude to that. I mean, I don't think it's obviously a fantastic goal on the eye, but important-wise, yes, it'd be up there for sure.
Monster.
But just because of how I felt in that game and it helping us to go on and win a trophy, I'd say probably on the eye, the West Ham one just pips it.
I can't get Lasagna Gate out of my head now, Jermaine. Do you think that was dodgy?
Go, man.
Do you think that was dodgy? Do you think some up to no good with that, or do you think it was just one of those things?
It's never happened before, has it? And it's never happened since. It's one of
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Were you ill as well?
Yeah, everyone was. Yeah. Everyone was ill.
Everyone.
Yeah, we tried to get the game postponed, and they didn't even get it postponed in the end. There was a point in the game, like Michael Carrick was the worst out of all of us, right? And I think the only person that didn't get it was Edgar Davids. And Edgar, for some reason in this game, is having an absolute nightmare. He's having a beast. And Martin Yoles tried to take him off the pitch just because he's having a beast. And Carra has come flying over and gone, "Don't you dare. I'm going to be sick. I need to come off now." And he literally had to run straight down the tunnel. And Edgar's had to stay on the pitch. But it was a funny day.
Have you ever eaten lasagna since?
Well, my own lasagna, Gary. I trust myself.
Yeah, exactly. Play it safe, especially before a show. Stevie, I think I've got to know the answer to this one. If it's not, I'll be shocked. Favourite game you've played in?
I've actually played in a couple along the way. You remember 2001 Alaves 5-4? The golden goal time?
We did that game. We did that game live.
Actually,
it was incredible.
A funny story. Most of us didn't even know it was golden goal. So
no way.
Some of us are going back. Some of us are going back to line up and like thinking, there's still some extra time to play, and then it actually drops. You're just in the moment. You're just in the moment. You know what I mean?
Were you one of them?
No comment. Istanbul, obviously. Istanbul. Yeah. I mean, I think recently it's been voted as one of the best sporting things ever. I always have to go to that. I know people are sick of hearing about it, but that's the way it is.
They're not. Liverpool fans certainly aren't. Tell us what's going through your head during that. I mean, both in the first half and the second half, and when the comeback became possible.
Well, what about the weeks leading up to it, when you're seeing the teams in the papers and you're looking at, with all due respect to our squad and our 11, when it's faced up 11v11, the weeks leading up, I'm not sleeping the same. I'm thinking, this could be tough, and
Yeah.
They had top players all over the squad, so the build-up was tough, to try and remain confident and have belief and prepare for it, knowing what you were up against. And then obviously the game starts, and yourself, when you come up and you're an underdog, the plan's always to start well, stay in the game, be good defensively, and then it goes Pete Tong after 3-4 minutes, and then at half-time you're 3-0 down, but you could be 5 or 6, and... Yeah. That's probably one of the most difficult dressing rooms I've ever walked into as a captain, thinking, well, what am I going to say? What are we going to do? The fans are still with us, which was incredible.
What did you say?
Well, there was a bit of commotion in terms of we had a few injuries that Rafa had to iron out and get the 11 sorted for the second half. We knew, obviously, Didier Man was coming on, which was a big lift for everyone because... I was surprised Didier didn't start with his experience, and I always felt like I played better with Didier Man because he'd always look after me and allow me and give me the license to go on. JJ, I'll tell you, as a attacking midfielder, it's better when you play with someone who holds the fort, if you like.
He was a master of the stalling foul, wasn't he?
He was the best. He used to just wait 1 second and then go over. And then Rafa said his piece, he'd done his changes and blah, blah, blah. And Rafa's message was, just try and get the first goal if we can. And I got the chance to speak towards the end of the meeting, which wasn't long, but it was more the case of just let's realise what the fans have done to get here. And the journey they've been on, the money they've put up, and they're still singing, they're still with us. Let's at least give them something to go home and sing about. It can't be one of these games where it becomes embarrassing. But it did actually feel a mismatch at half time. I have to generally admit that. I did.
You must have felt you were beaten, realistically.
Well, yes. I say. I mean, realistically, if I was really truthfully honest with how I was feeling at the time, I thought it was over.
When you got that first goal, Steve, then was it genuine belief, or was it a little bit like, well, let's just see what happens from here? Because sometimes when you're on the pitch and that goal goes in, you feel the other team just get a little bit like, there's a little chink in their armour here.
I don't think it was belief in terms of like, right, lads, I think we're going to go on and win this, because I'd be telling.
Gives you hope, it gives you hope.
It gives you a tiny bit of hope, a bit of belief. It gives people confidence. But what it does is it also gives you a bit of relief that you give the fans something. At least they've got a memory or something. And then it was just trying to rally everyone and try and keep the intensity up, because we started at a better intensity second half. We had a better shape about us, and we were getting a bit more joy in the final third. So you're thinking, well, come on then, let's see who can score the next goal. So it was more that type of feeling rather than belief that we were going to go and win it.
I mean, it was an incredible game, and things started to go for you, and then you get back into it. I mean, I've watched you film the film of your life, which was terrific. Really enjoyed it, and
Thank you.
You kind of encapsulated that emotion and what it meant, and it was just incredible. Difficult to describe, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, still to this day, it's like, how did it happen? You know, I still have to pinch myself to believe. You know, when you watch the game back and. You know, even the second goal that Vladimir Smicer hits, I mean, Milan Boros pulls away from that by millimetres. That could have easily hit him and gone away. You see the Dudek save.
That's the best save ever. One of the best saves ever in any game, any time.
I mean, it's up there with the Gordon Banks one. I mean,
it really is.
It's one of them moments where you think, well, this could be our night. And then you get to penalties, and I was actually on the fifth penalty, so you can imagine the nerves and the tension and the anxiety. And then obviously when it's all done and dusted, I mean, I've done an interview at the side of the pitch, and I literally couldn't remember what I was saying. I was just so elated and on such a high. I mean, I've seen the interview back since, and I was like, I can't remember saying that. Superb night, fantastic night.
Yeah, it was. Did you have any friends or family or people that you knew that switched off at half time and went off?
Well, I've got a story for you that my own brother and dad had enough at half time.
No way.
No.
And they were thinking because it was in the middle of nowhere, the stadium. It was a bit of a trek and hard work getting there and stuff. So they were thinking, is it going to be the same after it? And it's not looking good here. And even they were contemplating going, but.
They did stay though, thank heavens.
Yeah, they did. Just about.
Wow.
I mean, that's something they would have had to live with for the rest of their lives. But, I mean, the Liverpool fans in the second half, I mean, I think we got support off them off the night that they appreciated the journey and they accepted that, okay, this might be one step too far. At half-time, they must have thought, well, let's just stick with them because they've given us a great journey. Yeah. So I think they were all shocked and surprised come the final whistle.
Absolutely fabulous. Stephen, your football hero growing up?
I'm going to embarrass you a bit now, Gary. I had a few. With England, my first World Cup that I really watched properly at 10 years of age was 1990 World Cup. So obviously yourself being the goal scorer. You were second.
That'll do.
No, I mean, yourself and Gazza. I mean, that team, I used to love that team. That was my England team, if you like, that I always go back to. From a Liverpool point of view, Johnny Barnes, you would have shared a dressing room with him. Growing up, watching Barnes, Beardsley as well, but if I had to pick one, it'd be Johnny Barnes. And towards, just before I signed like schoolboy forms and apprenticeship forms at Liverpool, Robbie Fowler, I mean, from 19 to 23, was absolutely phenomenal. So they're probably me four heroes and me go-to men when I was in the street practicing when I was a kid. Well,
I'm truly flattered. Thank you very much indeed. We'll move straight on to that. Go on, Jermaine.
Well, I was going to say, it's straight. There's not one centre midfielder in there, really, is there? There's not one that you kind of went, I want to emulate kind of what he does.
Yeah, probably when I got towards 16, 17, I'd really studied the likes of, your Jamie Redknapp's and your Roy Keanes and your people in the league at the time. But in the street at 9, 10 years of age, I wanted to score goals. I wanted to take people on. I wanted to get crosses in, and
Gazza was that, wasn't he? Gazza was a midfield player, and he was a different kind of player to yourself.
Yeah, he was,
but a different kind of player to anyone, a different kind of bloke to anyone. But what a player!
Even the years before, like I can mention Rush and I can mention Aldridge and stuff like that. It was more about the action and the highlights. I mean, on TV at the time, we would have only got the highlights, so I didn't really at the time understand centre midfield players and the position and stuff. It was probably more 100%. Towards 15, 16.
I'm the same. When people ask me, like, who did you kind of like love when you was a kid? Like John Barnes was like my hero in my house. He was like a god. Do you know what I mean? But as a centre midfield player, well, for starters, I played centre forward when I was a kid anyway, and then dropped back into midfield. So you don't always kind of base your heroes on how you want to play, do you? It's what lights you up.
The truth is, Jermaine, Stevie, the truth is that it's all about the goal scorers, lads. It's all about...
That's why you just get paid all the money.
This is true.
Yeah. Well,
this is true.
Do nowadays, particularly, that's for sure. Right.
Don't get them started,
here's one for you. The funniest moment. I mean, I'm sure you've had plenty. And probably some you can't tell us, but one that you can.
I'll tell you, but there's loads that I can't tell you. I mean, I've roomed with people like Jamie Carragher and Peter Crouch, and roomed with them all, and Wayne Rooney. The stuff that you obviously that goes on, and jokes, and blah blah blah.
I heard a story about yourself going to a club in fancy dress, dressed. Literally, you had the prosthetics, and you were in a wheelchair and everything, dressed as an old man, and
it wasn't a wheelchair. It wasn't a wheelchair. It was actually like a mobility scooter. So I'm thinking, what am I going to go as here? So the plan was, one of my friends had a mask. It was like a rubber mask of an older guy type thing with no air and blah, blah, blah. And it had a hole in the mouth where you could put a pipe in, and you could obviously put a flat cap on. So that was the idea. I went into a shop and bought some cheap clothes and dressed like a 70 to 80-year-old man. And I went to hire the mobility scooter, and the guy was like, look, you can't hire it unless you've got a problem. And I was like, well, listen, my back, trust me, my back is up there with the worst back. So I deserve one of these type thing. And I ended up getting the scooter on a 2-day release. So when I got dropped off in town, I had to drive into the bar on the mobility scooter, and I'm driving around the party, and everyone's in there just having a beer in fancy dress, and I'm just driving around them, and no one has got a clue who it is. So it worked an absolute treat. I actually won it on the night, which was good.
Oh, brilliant!
I would think you did.
It was Crouchy that told you that, wasn't it? Was it Crouchy?
Wow, but it's not fancy
It was Crouchy,
dress.
It was Crouchy that told me,
It was a belter, trust me. It was a good one.
Actually, saying that, when you said it was Crouchy, I think was Pennant in that team as well, because he told me about it as well. You had a couple of wrong-uns in that side, to be fair, didn't you?
Squealers. Listen, we had some characters, let me tell you.
I can imagine.
Right. The best game you've ever watched, Stevie?
2. I watched one with you, if you remember. PSG, Barcelona, when we were up in the studio. Remember that one?
Of course, yeah, you were there. That was extraordinary, wasn't it? We went bonkers, didn't we? It's funny with a game like that, isn't it? How you can get so engrossed in it.
That's got to be one of them. But I think last year at Anfield, I was invited to go to the second leg against Barcelona, the 4-0 game. And if you talk about heartbeat and adrenaline, and I had to leave at 3-0 because I was so nervous it was going to go wrong and stuff. And Trent's corner and the crowd, the atmosphere. I think you might have been there for BT. Did you do that game?
Yeah, we were not only covering it, I was getting like dog's abuse from the Liverpool fans, because obviously the first leg when Barca won, there was a moment where they cut to us in the studio. They showed us after the game with the Messi goal and the free kick, and we got lots of stick from the Liverpool fans. Now I'm an ex-Barcelona player, so obviously I've got a lot of feeling towards the club. But the way it actually happened, and the reason that me and Rio went mad, was because we were sat in the studio, we're miles above there in the new camp, and the free kick was given, and Messi needed one for 600, didn't he, or something? 600 goals for Barcelona. For 600 goals for Barcelona. And the free kick was given, and I went, I fancy he'll score his 600 here. And Rio's gone, no chance. He says it's too far out. I said, I don't know, it's on the cusp. I think it's possible. And then, like 2 seconds later, he bent it at the top corner. I went, I told you we were going to... Just one of the most amazing football things, you know, obviously.
Yeah. I think that's the way Messi gets you.
Yeah, it was just a magical moment that was so exciting.
Yeah, and I think even in that Anfield game, I mean, Messi was causing problems. And if you remember the one that Matip just nicks off his toe, and the one that he passes the side of the post, I mean, it was such an up and down game. I mean, 4-0 suggests it was so one-sided, but it wasn't, because Liverpool were under a lot of pressure as well at the time. But to watch, you know, as a guest, and obviously what needed to be done before the game, I mean, probably one of the best games I've watched, certainly since I've retired, for sure.
Yeah, it was extraordinary. I also jumped up and was excited when Trent did what he did.
Yeah, but no one's seen that, Gary. Stop lying.
I wasn't jumping up and down.
No one's seen Rio jumping up.
No, but we had who did we have in the studio? I think we had Michael Owen and Robbie Fowler, and the cameras were set on them, not us. But no, we weren't jumping up and down. But I was absolutely. It was like, wow, what did we just see with what Trent did? Because it was like, what made him think of that?
I mean, the Champions League these days, I mean, that's what it gives you, isn't it? You know, them moments, and we talk about the PSG and Barcelona comeback a couple of years before. I mean, that's why we love it so much, because it gives you them moments where you're out of your seat.
Is that the ambition, Stephen, with Rangers, is to get them in the Champions League and have a
Yeah, of course.
Because you got to win the league to do that in Scotland, obviously.
You have, and hopefully maybe one day as well is getting the extra position in the league as well with the points thing that you can sock up by doing well in the Europa League, which we're getting very close to. So hopefully, if it's not next season, the season before, it might take 2 teams in Scotland rather than 1.
Okay, right. Here's one. I'm sure you've had plenty. We've probably mentioned 1 or 2 already. Craziest teammate.
Oof. I wouldn't class him as a teammate, but it was someone who I was an apprentice under, and I'm going to mention a name to you now, and you'll probably nod your head. Neil Razor Ruddock. I mean, this is someone who I used to clean his boots. I used to put his kit out. I used to be around him. I mean, full of life, larger than life character. I mean, every single day you could have a story about Razor. But I remember something crazy that happened, and he comes out at half-time in the reserve game. He hadn't been picked by, I think it was Roy Evans or Ronnie Moran at the time, and he just whistled me on the pitch once, and the next minute he's just using the pitch as a toilet. He's just.
We've all done that, Stephen. I tell you.
Not number two. Not a number 2. He shouts at me and goes, I knew I should have had one at half-time, but I'm going to have to go. I just think he's doing it. I'm a 16-year-old kid, you know what I mean? Wow. Then I go to a function with him once and he's drinking out of a shit. I mean, Razor's just one of them people. Great company,
Gaza,
lovely fella.
Exactly like that. Gaza, exactly the same.
Just
do anything for
left, right and centre. Yeah. But the type of people you want to be around because they just make your life better by being funny. And they don't even sometimes realise it.
Do you not feel like privilege though, Steve, that you were able to experience those moments with those types of characters? Because I feel like those characters are just not there in the game anymore. To be
honest, JJ, everyone said that with time immemorial. They always go, the characters are not aligned. And then when you finish playing, people tell you about the characters you don't realise. Yeah. Remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked to Cesc Fabregas and he was going, and we said, who's the craziest teammate? And he came out with Gerrard Piqué and we're going, really? I wouldn't have known that. He said, he's mad, he's full of laughs, jokes and stuff. And the other thing I think that perhaps works against it is social media a little bit now. Everyone's kind of so scared to do something wrong that the backlash comes down on you.
Yeah. 100%. But, I mean, good job there was no social media in, I'm sure, the Gaza days and the Razor days, because that would have been interesting. But my best days were my apprenticeship days. Before football got really serious and it was a profession and it was pressure. I mean, you leave school, and I wasn't really a fan of school. I should have maybe focused a bit more at school, but going in to play football every day and looking up to the likes of Ruddock and Redknapp and Ince and Fowler, I mean, they were the best days of my life, my apprenticeship days.
It's funny you say that, Steve, 'cause I remember being an apprentice at Forest, and we probably did the same as you. Like, we used to all have to stand in a tunnel as that kind of all the top players went out to play. And I remember Forest were playing Middlesbrough one day, and Gaza was on the bench. And at half-time, halfway down, there's like a long corridor at Forest, and the away team get dressed at the top, and halfway down, there's a little tea room on the right-hand side, and there's always the same fella in there doing the teas, and we used to go in there as apprentice lads, freezing, like either doing ball boying or whatever. It was all freezing. I'd get a cup of tea. Gaza walks in one day, and I'll never forget it. He walks in, and he sits there with a cup of tea. He just lights a fag. He's on the bench at half-time. Starts smoking this fag, and I'm looking at him just like, in awe of him, going, this is Gaza, like, what's going on here? But like those moments, you just can't ever kind of like,
there's a lot of them.
No one gets to see those. Yeah, but they're so precious to someone who's like 15, 16.
You must be able to write a book on him, Gaza.
I could do.
I mean, I hear all the story. I know you couldn't do that, but
well, I could. No. I mean, I've told him hundreds of the stories. I'll try and think of the fresh ones. We played at Man City, the old Main Road ground, and before the game, I always used to have a little hot bath, just to for 2 minutes, sit down in the small bath. If there wasn't a small bath, if there was a big one, I'd stand in it just to stretch a little bit because I was always stiff.
Yeah.
2 minutes max, hot water, get out, go and do my warm-up, come back. So we're playing at Main Road. So I'm doing my usual. They didn't have a small bath. They had just one big one. So first thing I do is walk in, start filling it up, get undressed, come back 10 minutes later, filled up, really hot, just stretch, 2 minutes. As I'm in there, Gaza walks in. He says, like, you're always having a bath late. You always have. Why? So I'm explaining. Just loosen up, Gaza. Just a little stretch. He said, I feel a bit stiff myself. I might try it. I went, yeah, all right. But yeah, I said. So I jumped out, right, and he jumps in. So I go, get my kit on, get trained, go out, do the warm up, 15-minute warm. I always used to warm up properly. Came back in 15 minutes late, got messed about. Last thing I always did, walked in, go and have a pee. and I'm going to the bathroom. He is in the bath still, sat there. The water is up to there. It's boiling up, and his face is as red as a strawberry. And I said, Gazza, don't tell me you've been in there like that since I left. He went, it's great, man. It's great. I feel great. So I went, oh, God. No. So we go out and play the game. I can't remember whether there were 2 or 3 down at half time. Gazza is all over the place and he's shouting at me, let it go. I'm going, oh, for Christ's sake. So we get in at half time, sit down. Venables goes, Gazza, what's wrong with you? What's wrong? He said, fucking Lineker's fault. It's Lineker's fault. He told me to have a bath, didn't he, before the game? I'm all giddy. I'm all dizzy, like. Honestly, it was like, what? It's funny. He's been calling me a bit lately, and we were talking about that, and he remembered it well, and he said, I still blame you. I went, yeah, cheers.
Brilliant.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. You'll never beat Gazza in terms of craziest teammates. There just isn't one. It's every day as well. It was every single day. I can imagine. Right, let's finish with... favourite international moment, which, given the nature of the team that England had for such a period, so many great players, favourite internationals, probably not enough of good moments.
Definitely not enough. I see a lot of interviews about this. I see a lot recently as well, and I'm sure JJ has been asked this question numerous times. Why didn't we, as a group, do better? And we should have. I think we have to take a lot of responsibility for that. I think my best moment would have to go back to 2001, beating Germany away 5-1, because that is the go-to game and the memory for me where probably that team performed at the level maybe it should have. But I look back with England with a lot of regret, Gary, in terms of I see the picture of that team and the squad and, you know, training with the likes of JJ as a group. We had some fantastic groups of players over the years, and I think we come close at times in the penalty shootouts and could have maybe got a little bit further, which people might have given us a bit more respect for, but there's no getting away from it. We underperformed.
I remember a game we played against Argentina in Geneva. It was a friendly game. And I think you set up the winner for Michael. I think we beat him 3-2 in the last minute or something. 3-2, yeah. And I remember being in the shower with you afterwards. And even though we won the game and it was such a great game, you were a little bit annoyed. And I remember you talking to me about... with England, you get moved around a lot because of your physical attributes that you've had as a player. It almost not made it worse for you, but it didn't allow you. Say Lampard, for example, because he was like an attacking midfield player and he wasn't known, I suppose, as dynamic as you. You'd never put Lamps at right back, would you? Basically.
No, but I have seen Paul Scholes get played out of position. Yeah. I've seen you get played out of position. Yeah. I mean, in that game that you're talking about, I think I had a stage at right back.
You played at right back in the end. That's my point. That's why we had the conversation, because you were a bit annoyed of it.
I remember thinking to myself, if Messi comes over here, my back's going in. I'm getting off the pitch. But yeah, I think because of, you know, my versatility, I think it did go against me at certain times.
That's what I mean, yeah.
For me, looking back, I think we just needed that manager that was bigger than all the individual players.
You needed a manager. It's probably easier for me to say. You needed a manager.
I'll say it.
Oh, good. Say it.
Because I feel passionate about it. And look, before any headlines come, we are responsible for it, and I am responsible for the part I played in. I'm not shying away from it, but I look at managers now, and there was managers available at the time, i.e. Benitez or blah, blah, blah. Maybe he didn't want to be an international manager at the time, okay. But I look at managers now that are bigger than the team, you know, your Klopps and your Mourinhos and your Guardiolas and blah, blah, blah. And I think someone like that who was above the golden generation, if you like, and prepared to make the tough decisions tactically, technically, formation-wise, and decision-making would have got more out of that group, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah, my point was going to be pretty much that. It seemed they were so stuck, I mean, particularly Sven was so stuck in his way of playing. And they used to really irritate me when they say, yeah, but the trouble is Lampard and Gerrard can't play together. In a 4-4-2, you could argue that, but why? If you've got those kind of players and Scholes as well, and change the system.
I also think, listen, Scholes and Frank are phenomenal footballers. There's no getting away from it, and you know maybe at times me and Frank didn't deliver in it too, so we deserve that criticism. Of course we do, but you know there was times I'd go into England get-togethers sometimes, and I weren't in the best form myself, or I'd be carrying an injury if you like, and blah blah blah, but I'd still play. Now, of course, I wanted to play, and I think that's right because my ego would want me to play, and I wouldn't want to lose my place, and blah blah blah. But I think what Gareth's done in this day and age is, if you're not in form, it doesn't matter whether you're Lampard, Scholes, Lineker, Jenas, blah blah blah. Someone else is in form. They're going to do a better job for this game at the time, and he's got, he's put himself above them decisions, and I think that's the reason why England are getting success.
Yeah, because on the flip side to that, Stevie, there was so many times, I think, for people like myself, Michael Carrick, maybe Scotty Parker as well on the fringe of it at times, and we had the feeling that it didn't matter what it did. So in turn, we used to kind of switch off to an extent. We shouldn't have. That's where it's our fault.
Yeah, no, listen, I can understand that. And also, when you're away for 6 weeks or 10 days, if you know what the team's going to be and certain players are going to play, I totally feel that frustration. Of course I do. And there was times when I'd go into England get-togethers and be in unbelievable form, and I'd go and play on the left, but I'd just be in absolutely fantastic as an 8 or a 10. So I think everyone has the frustrations and blah, blah, blah. But I just think that is where the manager comes in. Is getting the best out of individuals and the group in the right formation that suits the personnel. And if it means a Gerrard on the bench for a game, I wouldn't like it at the time, but I'd get over it. A Scholes wouldn't like it at the time, but he'd get on with it. What is the best formation and system for the group? But you need the figurehead to go and deliver that.
Yeah. It's a shame. It seemed like a bit of a waste, that golden generation. It never quite happened. Stephen, thanks so much for your top 10.
My pleasure.
It's been absolutely brilliant talking to you. Just a couple of words before we go on how you enjoying. We work together a bit with BT, obviously, with punditry and stuff. How's the management side of it? You enjoying it?
I'm enjoying it, Gary. There's obviously a lot of things to learn and improve on. I'm loving, obviously, the daily routine of being around the football pitch in the dressing room and trying to get the most out of the players and stuff. I'm at a fantastic club that is giving me support. I'm really enjoying being at Rangers. I feel like we've made a lot of progress, but, it's a tough challenge here. We've still got to go some more. We've still got to keep making the right additions to try and close the gap even more. But in terms of the journey, I'm loving every minute of it. Yeah.
You're making progress. You're closing the gap.
Yeah, I think we have made progress. We've closed the gap. We've proved that we can beat Celtic now. I think they were in fear of them when I first came in because they'd had a couple of setbacks against them. But the challenge now is, can we go the distance? We've proved in 1v1 games we can match them and beat them. We've proved we can go on runs in Europe and compete against Feyenoord and Porto and them type of teams. But what we haven't yet to prove is getting over the line to get our first trophy and also go the distance for longer in the league. So the challenge is making the 11 better, making the squad better, prepared to try and go the distance.
I was watching your film, Stephen, and what I've found truly fascinating was how much it meant to you, what happened with you during your career at Liverpool. With management, it's even more of an onus on you. Can you still enjoy it, or does it matter too much at times, do you think?
I think it's very similar to as a player in terms of the emotional side and the feeling. I mean, you'll know after a win, it feels unbelievable. You feel good about yourself for a few days. You're fantastic around the house and blah, blah, blah. But the setbacks and the bumps in the road and the defeats are still just as painful. But when I came out and I stopped playing for a few years, or I went over to America and stuff, I really missed that being involved in the pressure situations and having a routine and something to compete for on the weekends. I did miss coming out of Liverpool and having that. And this replaces a lot of it, and I am enjoying that side of it. But it is different to being a player because you're part of the team, and you have a job within that team and stuff. And it can be a little bit more lonely at times and a little bit more difficult at times as a manager. But I knew that coming into it, and it's something you've got to deal with at the time.
Have you made certain decisions, Stevie, because obviously you're a brand new manager, so you go into, but where, I don't know, whether it's the press conference afterwards, the way that you've handled the halftime team talk, where you kind of would go, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I need to do it this way next time. Like whether it's out in players and so on and so forth. Are you like constantly learning every day?
Yes, for sure. I've come away from press conferences and thought I was probably a little bit too harsh there, or I maybe could have been a little bit more harsh. Maybe I've come away from team talks and thought I haven't hit the right message there, or I've said the wrong thing. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. But with all due respect, JJ, I think I'll still be making them mistakes if I'm still involved in 5 years and 10 years and 15 years. I think it is one of them games where you don't stop learning. I'm sure the best managers out there in the world who I'd strive and love to be as good as one day, I'm sure they're still making mistakes. So I don't think it's a case of anyone being perfect in this role.
No one's perfect in any role. It's part of life, isn't it, really, Stephen?
So.
Your life has been absolutely brilliant so far. Thanks for sharing some of it with us, and wish you all the best for whenever football does return. And Jermaine, thank you as well. That's it for this episode of Match of the Day Top 10 on BBC Sounds. We'll be back next week.
Jurgen, you're a big fan of the BBC Sounds app.
Oh, yes.
Well, we've heard reports that you've been enjoying the Football Daily podcast on it.
I loved it. That makes me quite happy, to be honest.
Jose, Football Daily is bringing top analysis and comment on BBC Sounds. How do you feel about that?
Of course, it's the best thing in football.
Are you a fan, Oli?
Yeah, I love that. Wow, this is massive.
Pep, Football Daily has some big-name guests. Are you excited to listen?
This is good news for us.
The team is really good.
Listen to the Football Daily podcast on the BBC Sounds app, 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 on the BBC Sounds